Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Golem with Homunculus Gaming, and today we'll be looking at STALKER Call of Pripyat. And before you jump to the comment section, yes, I know my pronunciation is terrible, so for simplicity's sake, we'll just be calling it COP. This iteration in the STALKER series is actually a bit old. Its initial release was in October of 2009. However, there's some interesting mods that will be released in the upcoming days. I think that'll be a separate video, so look out for that in sub box. But this video right now is just looking at STALKER, so it can be used as a reference video for anybody that sees the upcoming videos for mods and wants to check out the actual game. Additionally, STALKER didn't get that much publicity, unfortunately. It got some favorable reviews, but it didn't really take off or that much attention. But with the mods installed, it's actually quite a good game. But this is just the vanilla version, as I previously stated. So with all that out of the way, let's hop into this one. Every iteration of the STALKER series and books take place in the general vicinity of the Chernobyl disaster. For those of you that don't know, Chernobyl was a reactor that exploded in the former Soviet Union satellite state of Ukraine and forced the evacuation of several large cities. I don't want to bore you all, but I'll include a link to the Wikipedia page in case more of you are interested in read up on the actual details of the event. It's pretty interesting. You might want to take a look. But you're not here to get a history lesson, so why is the setting so important? Well, the setting contributes to something that the STALKER series is well known for and what it does the best: immersion. The game uses this real-life event that occurred and takes a fictional turn on it, in which people have come back to this zone and live with several different factions interacting with each other and fighting for power and dominance. And this radiological event has altered the physical properties of the area, as well as things that used to live in the area, making mutants, and turning everyday objects like a wheel or a cord or anything around your house into artifacts, things with seemingly supernatural properties such as healing or giving you more carrying capacity. These items and events have piqued the curiosity of the Soviet Union, so under Operation Fairway, 5 helicopters have been sent into the zone to investigate, but all subsequently crash for unknown reasons. You are sent in to investigate on behalf of the army. Alright, but let's slow down for a minute. So first things first, the tutorial in this game, or lack of tutorial. After watching a rather lengthy intro cutscene explaining the setting and what your job is to do there, you are thrown into the world with absolutely no explanation of what to do or what's going on. There is no tutorial for controls, there is no tutorial for gameplay, there is no tutorial for anything. You're just thrown into the world, you have no idea where to go, you have no idea what you're doing, which kind of contributes to the theme, but it also detracts greatly from gameplay. I imagine this is going to throw a ton of new people off. I really wanted to get into this series for quite a long time, and I saw it was on Steam sale, so I picked it up. Additionally, with the news of new things coming out for mods, we'll get back to that later, I promise. But upon trying to get started in this game several times, it's not difficult to get disheartened running around for lengthy gameplay periods, having no idea what's going on, what's killing you, or where to go and what to do. For the life of me, I can't understand the train of thought of developers that don't include proper tutorials in the game. Do you seriously expect people just to wander around for hours and figure out themselves? There's still things that I'm figuring out in the game, and I've buried over 100+ hours into it. Developers, unless it actually contributes to the gameplay, include a proper tutorial. Additionally, you're probably going to want to change the FOV. It feels very, very up close and actually doesn't give you a good view of the guns you're using. There's a free mod out there that you can download and run that will allow you to adjust the FOV outside of the game. It works great, virus-free. Would have been nice to put it in the game, but at least somebody else figured out a way to do it. I'll include a link in the description if you're going to pick up the game and want to adjust the FOV. So, now to the actual gameplay. STALKER, COP, is a survival horror, semi-open world first-person shooter. Undoubtedly, this will bring up discussions of comparison to Fallout. After live streaming the majority of my playthrough through this version and the mod, people that pop into the stream and are unfamiliar with the series, generally the first thing they always ask is a comparison to Fallout. STALKER doesn't have the RPG character improvement aspects that Fallout has. You can upgrade guns, armor, and that sort of thing, but you can't actually improve how well your character performs tasks or operates weapons, but you can upgrade individual pieces and how well those perform. Weapon and armor upgrades are actually done in a pretty interesting way. In accordance with the theme of the world, not all technicians are capable of performing all upgrades. You need to venture out into the world and recover some tools for them in order for them to upgrade some of your items. And even when the technician does have the required tools, you're still capable of making some interesting choices when it comes to your gear. Upgrades are laid out in a tree system, so after you get the first upgrade, you're then given 2 choices afterwards in most cases that allow you to do 2 different things, but you're only allowed to pick 1 out of the 2. So let's say you have a sniper rifle, and you've already picked up the durability upgrade. So the next 2 choices in the tree are either you can have increased accuracy of the trajectory of the bullet, or you might choose that you can bring up the scope faster. Both are completely legitimate upgrades and useful in different situations, but you can tailor-make each weapon to your own personal playstyle and how you choose to use that weapon in each situation. There's several other major differences, but Stalker isn't nearly the same game as Fallout. I for one didn't really enjoy Fallout, not saying it's a bad game, but I just didn't enjoy it quite as much as Stalker. If you do play both games to completion, you'll see what I mean, but let's not delve too deep into that topic right now. So there's 3 different zones that you progress through. I don't want to spoil them too much, but one is heavily urban, another is semi-urban with a little bit of rural, and one is heavily rural. Each zone feels different, and time you spend in them has a unique ambiance to it. However, the thing that is a problem with the zones in this game is that they are all separate. If they combined all 3 zones, then the game would have been a lot more immersive. You have to travel between zones by using guides. You have to pay them quite a bit of money, and they will instantly transport you to one area or another. Having to wander between zones would have been so cool. Making your way through the mucky plains of one into the city of another would have been so much more captivating in this setting. There's no loading screens, fortunately, as you wander around one individual zone, but as soon as you're immersed and completely believe the world that you're in, and then go to a guide and transport you to another zone and sit through a loading screen, you're quite effectively yanked out of the experience you were in. Fortunately, these individual zones and the areas within them feel meticulously designed and planned out. Something as simple as searching an abandoned and isolated farmhouse for food or medical supplies can feel like a life or death situation. Even plodding your way through the variously abandoned complexes, room to room in the dead of night, can be downright spooky. The game even promotes this spontaneous exploration with stashes hidden around the world. Stashes contain various goodies from guns to food, or bandages and medicine. These stashes really give you a good reason to go crawl through abandoned and infected buildings, contributing to the real post-apocalyptic atmosphere of the game. Oh, and food? Yes, you need food. You won't necessarily starve to death, but it will heavily affect your energy regeneration. Energy is expended by moving, running, or jumping, and the rate you expend it at is determined by how much weight you're carrying in your inventory, as well as if your character is starving or not. If you're a pack rat like myself in RPGs, or just want to have all the shiny things, you're going to be spending quite a bit of time waddling about at incredibly slow speeds until you only carry the necessities and maybe 1 or 2 things extra. This food mechanic really boosts the atmosphere and the believability of this crazy world. And even when your stomach isn't turning against you, there are a plethora of enemies, all the way from horribly disfigured mutants to cutthroat factions which will do anything to get ahead in the post-apocalyptic world. And even when a mutant isn't trying to eat your face off or somebody rob you for all your worth, there are an assortment of environmental factors that'll try and kill you as well. From good old-fashioned radiation and biological hazards to inexplicable anomalies, the zone is not your friend at all. This danger is conveyed well. It seems like everything is trying to kill you, and the environment feels dangerous and inhospitable. This is something that diversifies Stalker well from other post-apocalyptic survival horror games. Most of the environmental effects feel very threatening at the start because of their graphic effects on your screen and the Geiger counter clicking away, but after you've had a bit of experience with them and accumulated many a med pack to deal with whatever ailment it may give you, they cease to really be super dangerous, but feel like more of a nuisance later in the game. It's much more compelling to think, oh no, not a biohazard zone, I don't know how I'm going to deal with this, I have to be really, really careful, instead of just jumping in knee-deep into toxic waste without a care. But these environmental hazardous effects are much more frequent in COP and really play well into the immersion and atmosphere of the game. The gameplay has been designed around the world, not the world around the gameplay. The real world setting is creepy in itself, so it doesn't take much stretch of the imagination to make an incredibly creepy game based off the real life events. This is Stalker's biggest draw, its immersion. There's little magical moments where, even for an instant, you're engrossed in this nightmare hellish apocalypse. Some of the storylines can be silly and sometimes downright laughable. I wouldn't recommend picking up this game if you're looking for a good story. Unfortunately, Stalker does a lot of things that shoots itself in the foot when it comes to immersion. On your first playthrough, you'll often get lost and completely confused on what you're supposed to do. Some quests give you markers where you're exactly supposed to go, and then others won't. You'll have to find out for yourself where you're supposed to go. But in some cases, this makes no sense. For instance, when you first start the game, the first area you're dropped into, there's 3 helicopter crashes you're supposed to investigate. 2 of these are very easy to get to, they're marked on your map, and they're very straightforward. The 3rd helicopter, which appears like you can just walk up to it, like the other 2 that you previously did, is up on a cliff, and no matter where you go surrounding the helicopter crash, you can't get up this cliff to it. Your first time through, this doesn't make any sense. The first 2 you've been conditioned that you can just walk up to them and then investigate the site. This 3rd one is up on a cliff for some inexplicable reason. You can see it, but you can't get to it, as well as it's right there on your map marker feet away from you. Not to spoil the story or anything, but before getting to this 3rd helicopter crash, you have to do something else to be able to get up there. I never found anything explaining this. I had to Alt-Tab out, which completely broke immersion after hours of trying to hop up these little ledges, and look up a guide of how to get to the helicopter. I'm sure there's some sort of explanation or chat queue in the game that leads you to this, but when you're trying to figure out 100 other things in the game and how it works, it's easy to miss a chat queue that's obscure and barely ever alluded to. It seems like barely anybody actually figured this out in the game. There's multiple forum posts, and it's one of the most searched things when looking at this game. This isn't the only occurrence of this game as well. There's quests later on that just say, find information about X. Well, where? Give me a hint. Where am I supposed to start looking for this information? The world is pretty big, even though it's split up into 3 different parts. At least let me know where to start. There are chat queues for this kind of thing, where it gives you hints of where to go and who you might need to talk to, but I'm sure a ton of people don't actually pick up on these things. I'm not advocating for leading the player around by the hand. I think that would be bad, and is boring, and would detract from the immersion in this game. But at the same time, be consistent in how the player discovers where objectives are, as well as not mislabeling or misdirecting the player through markers on the map. And wandering around abysmally lost isn't the only thing that will take you out of the experience. In the unmodded version of COP, the guns could use a little bit of work. If you don't use an FOV modifier, they actually look really strange. Something about them just seems off in their fidelity to real firearms if you're not using an FOV mod. Additionally, if you're using the same type of gun, they tend to feel exactly the same even though they appear different. This is mostly attributed to the sound design. Even though they use a different caliber in game, most of the guns that are of the same type, shotguns, assault rifles, sniper rifles, actually use the same sounds, which is really strange. And even the sounds they do reuse feel weak and puny. They don't feel like really powerful firearms. Oftentimes you feel like you're using a BB gun or a pea shooter instead of an actual assault rifle or shotgun. This is one of my biggest personal pet peeves with games. What's the point in even adding crazy, awesome, high caliber firearms if they just feel like it's a water gun? They need to have substance and good sound design. They need to feel like they're kicking, like you're actually shooting live rounds at people instead of just little things they brush off when you directly nail them. And on another note, not that it's the game's fault because it is pushing 3 years old, but a lot of the textures are quite outdated, as well as the animations. I'm not much of a stickler for graphics myself. As long as I'm getting good frames, I'm fine with the game, but I'm sure this could be quite off-putting for some people. Fortunately, there are many good fixes for this, which we'll get to in another video. But we're still just talking vanilla unmodded version here, which is a pretty good game in of itself. It's pretty entertaining, some interesting features, and an interesting fictional development on a real-world event. I just feel like there's way too many drawbacks in the game, like it hasn't quite reached its full potential. As quickly as COP will suck you into a beautiful atmospheric crescendo, it'll just as quickly pull the ripcord and bring you back to a loading screen, or some sort of frustrating event that wasn't properly explained to you. I think it's just that after playing modded versions of Stalker COP, and then going back to the original version, it's hard not to feel incredibly disappointed. Like the game was only released half complete, and that given a bit more work it could have been something quite incredible and a standout game. Fortunately, some people have been breathing new life into this game and helping it reach its full potential. There's been heavy modding in this game, which have some been aforementioned, but there's one in particular that almost fixes all the problems with this game. Almost. In my personal opinion, I feel like it's what this game should have been upon release. Click the annotation on your screen now to go see that video. If you enjoyed this video or found it informative, I'd appreciate your like or favorite. You don't have to, but it really helps me out. If you didn't, leave me a comment letting me know why. Also, don't forget to click that little subscribe button to stay on top of all the latest gaming content. Anyway, this was Homunculus Gaming, and I'll see you next time.